The studio lights burned bright, casting a golden glow across the sleek set of the Megyn Kelly show. The audience buzzed with anticipation, their murmurs filling the air as the cameras panned to Megyn Kelly, poised behind her polished desk. Her blonde hair was impeccably styled, her expression a mix of confidence and calculated sharpness, as she introduced her next guest. Tonight, we're joined by a global superstar, a woman who needs no introduction, Jennifer Lopez. The crowd erupted in applause, but there was an undercurrent of tension. Megyn's recent comments about Lopez had made headlines, particularly her scathing remarks on X, where she called Lopez's tour performances soft porn and mocked her personal life, saying she was an expert at ruining marriages. The studio audience, a mix of Lopez fans and Kelly's conservative followers, sensed a showdown was brewing. Jennifer Lopez strode onto the set, her presence commanding in a form-fitting emerald dress that shimmered under the lights. Her signature confidence radiated, but her eyes held a steely resolve as she took her seat opposite Megyn. The interview began cordially enough, with Megyn offering a tight smile. "Jennifer, welcome. You've been making waves with your Up All Night tour. Let's talk about that." But the pleasantries were short-lived. Megyn quickly pivoted, her tone sharpening. "Your performances have been a broken bar, let's say, provocative. Some say they're pushing boundaries too far for a woman of your age. What do you say to that?" The audience gasped, sensing the jab. Lopez's smile didn't falter, but her eyes narrowed. "I'm 55, Megyn, and I'm proud of my work. I perform for my fans, for my art, and for myself. If that makes some people uncomfortable, that's their problem, not mine." The crowd cheered, but Megyn leaned forward, undeterred. "But don't you think there's a line? I mean, some of your choreography, those suggestive moves with your dancer, so has been called, well, inappropriate. I said on my show it's like a soft porn. Do you disagree?" Lopez's jaw tightened, and the studio grew quiet. She leaned back, crossing her arms. "You know, Megyn, I expected better from you. Art isn't about playing it safe. It's about expression. Maybe you don't get that." The tension thickened as Megyn doubled down, her voice dripping with condescension. "Expression is one thing, Jennifer, but simulating sex acts on stage? At 55? I said on my podcast, and I'll say it again, that ship has sailed. You're not a sex symbol anymore." The audience erupted in boos, and Lopez's face flushed with a mix of anger and disbelief. "You're out of line, Megyn," she said, her voice low but firm. "You don't get to tell me who I am or what I can do. I've been breaking barriers my whole career, and I'm not stopping because you or anyone else thinks I should act my age." The crowd roared in support, but Megyn wasn't fazed. She pulled up a clip on the studio monitors, showing Lopez's performance at the Cook Music Festival in Spain, where she danced suggestively with shirtless male dancers. "This is what I'm talking about," Megyn said, gesturing to the screen. "This is what people are calling a soft porn. Are you proud of this?" Lopez's eyes flashed with defiance. "I'm proud of every moment I'm on stage. My fans love it, and that's what matters. You're cherry-picking to shame me, and I'm not here for it." The exchange was like a spark hitting dry tinder, and the studio felt electric with anticipation. Megyn, sensing she had the upper hand, pressed further. "Let's talk about your personal life, then. You've had 4 marriages, and I've said before, you seem to be an expert at ruining marriages. Why should people take advice from you on anything, let alone politics, when you supported Kamala Harris and her campaign failed?" The audience gasped again, louder this time, and Lopez's expression hardened. She leaned forward, her voice steady but laced with fury. "You want to talk about my life? Fine. I've loved, I've lost, I've grown. But you don't get to sit there and judge me or my choices to make yourself feel superior. My fans know who I am, and they don't need your approval or mine." The crowd erupted in applause, but Meghan smirked, ready to fire back. Before she could, Lopez stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "I'm done here," she said, ripping off her microphone. "You're out of line, and I'm not wasting my time with this." The audience roared as Lopez turned and walked off the set, leaving Meghan stunned and the cameras rolling. The studio was a whirlwind of noise as Jennifer Lopez's heels clicked against the polished floor, her exit a bold statement that reverberated through the room. The audience was on its feet, some cheering wildly, others whispering in shock, as the cameras followed her departure. Megyn Kelly sat frozen for a moment, her polished facade cracking as she processed what had just happened. The monitors behind her still displayed the clip of Lopez's performance, now frozen on a frame of her in a sparkling bodysuit, mid-dance with her backup dancers. The image seemed to mock Megyn's attempt to shame her, and the audience's reaction made it clear whose side they were on. Backstage, Lopez's team rushed to her side, but she waved them off, her expression a mix of anger and empowerment. She hadn't planned to walk off, but Megyn's relentless attacks on her art, her age, her personal life had crossed a line she couldn't ignore. As she reached the green room, she took a deep breath, her heart pounding. She knew this moment would go viral, and she was ready for it. Back on set, Megyn recovered quickly, her years as a broadcaster kicking in. "Well, folks, that's live TV for you," she said with a forced laugh, trying to regain control. Clearly, Jennifer Lopez isn't used to tough questions. The audience booed, and Megyn's smile tightened. She pivoted to the camera, her voice smooth but strained. "Let's be honest, when you put yourself out there like she does, you have to expect criticism. I stand by what I say. Her performances are inappropriate, and her track record speaks for itself." But the audience wasn't buying it. A woman in the front row shouted, "Leave J.Lo alone." And others joined in, chanting Lopez's name. Megyn's producers, sensing the segment was spiraling, signaled for a commercial break, but not before the cameras caught the crowd's fervor. Social media was already exploding, with ex-posts calling Lopez's walk-off iconic and slamming Kelly for age-shaming and slut-shaming. One user wrote, "Megyn Kelly tried to tear J.Lo down, and J.Lo said nope. Queen behavior." In the green room, Lopez sat on a plush couch, scrolling through her phone as notifications poured in. Her team buzzed around her, some worried about the optics, others praising her for standing up to Kelly. "You were amazing out there," her assistant said, handing her a bottle of water. Lopez took a sip, her mind racing. She thought back to the years of scrutiny she'd faced to her relationships, her fashion, her performances always under a microscope because she dared to be bold. Megyn's comments weren't new, they echoed the same tired narratives Lopez had fought against her whole career. "She thinks she can shame me into silence," Lopez muttered, her voice fierce. "She's wrong." Her manager nodded, already drafting a statement for the press. "This is going to be huge, Jen. People are rallying behind you." Lopez glanced at her phone again, seeing a flood of supportive messages from fans and even fellow celebrities. One tweet from Kirsten Emhoff, who had clashed with Kelly over similar remarks, read, "J.Lo owned that stage and owned Megyn Kelly. Keep shining." As the show resumed after the break, Megyn tried to steer the conversation to a new topic, but the audience was restless, and the energy in the room had shifted. Offstage, the producers were in a frenzy, aware that the clip of Lopez's walk-off was already trending worldwide. On X, hashtags like #JLo vs Megyn and #TeamJLo were gaining traction, with fans praising Lopez's strength and calling out Kelly's jealousy and misogyny. One user posted, "Megyn Kelly really thought she could bully J.Lo on live TV and not get checked. J.Lo said not today." Meanwhile, Lopez prepared to leave the studio, slipping on oversized sunglasses and a leather jacket. She wasn't just walking away from Megyn Kelly, she was walking toward a moment that would redefine her narrative. The world was watching, and Lopez knew how to seize a moment. As she stepped into the waiting car outside, she smiled faintly, already envisioning her next move, a performance that would be bolder, louder, and unapologetically her. The fallout from Jennifer Lopez's dramatic walk-off on the Megyn Kelly show spread like wildfire, dominating headlines and social media feeds. By the time Lopez's car pulled away from the studio, the internet was ablaze with clips of the confrontation, edited and reposted with captions like J.Lo shuts down Megyn Kelly and Megyn Kelly humiliated. Ex-users were relentless, with one viral post reading, "Jennifer Lopez just gave Megyn Kelly a masterclass in standing up for yourself." #Queenslow news outlets picked up the story, with articles dissecting every moment of the exchange. HuffPost quoted mental health experts who called Kelly's remarks harmful and rooted in misogyny, accusing her of shaming Lopez for embracing her sexuality at 55. Lopez, now back at her hotel, watched the coverage unfold on her phone, her team buzzing with excitement. "This is a PR goldmine," her publicist said, showing her a graph of skyrocketing social media engagement. But for Lopez, it wasn't just about the optics, it was personal. Megyn Kelly had tried to reduce her to a caricature, and she wasn't going to let it slide. Back at the studio, Megyn wrapped up the show with her usual poise, but the cracks in her composure were evident. The audience had grown hostile, and her attempts to pivot to other topics of politics, celebrity gossip fell flat. As the cameras cut, she retreated to her dressing room, where her team was already fielding calls from the network. "This is a mess," one producer whispered, scrolling through X, where Kelly was being roasted. A post read, "Megyn Kelly thought she could shame J.Lo and got schooled. Maybe stick to politics." Kelly, however, was defiant. She called her assistant over and dictated a post for X, "I call it like I see it." Jennifer Lopez's behavior speaks for itself. If she can't handle tough questions, maybe she shouldn't be in the spotlight. The post only fueled the fire, with fans clapping back, "Tough questions? You were just being mean. And J.Lo's a legend, and you're just loud." The backlash was swift, with even some of Kelly's conservative followers questioning her approach. Lopez, meanwhile, was already planning her next move. She sat with her team, sketching out a response that would keep the narrative in her control. "I'm not going to let her define me," she said, her voice steady. "I'm going to show the world who I am on my terms." Her team suggested a live Instagram session to address the incident directly, and Lopez agreed. Within hours, she was live, her face glowing under soft lighting as she spoke to millions of viewers. "I walked off that show because I refused to be disrespected," she said, her voice calm but powerful. "I'm 55, I'm proud, and I'm not apologizing for being me. My art, my life, my choices, they're mine. And to anyone who feels judged or shamed, know this, you are enough." The comments flooded with heart emojis and messages of support, with fans writing, "You're an inspiration, J.Lo. And Megyn Kelly could never." The live stream broke viewership records, and Lopez ended it with a teaser, "See you at my next show. It's gonna be bigger than ever." The internet erupted, with ex-users posting, "J.Lo just turned Megyn's shade into her own spotlight. Iconic." The incident wasn't just a memento, it was a cultural flashpoint. Pundits weighed in, with some praising Lopez for standing up to what they called Kelly's ageist and sexist attacks, while others, aligned with Kelly, doubled down on criticizing Lopez's raunchy performances. On The View, the hosts debated the clash, with Ana Navarro calling Lopez's walk-off a power move and saying, "Megyn Kelly needs to stop policing women's bodies." Lopez's team capitalized on the momentum, announcing an additional tour date for her Up All Night tour, with tickets selling out in minutes. Back in her hotel, Lopez stood by the window, looking out at the city skyline. She thought about her journey from the Bronx to global stardom and the countless times she'd faced criticism for being too much, too bold, too herself. This wasn't the first time someone